Tigerland Properties. These are licensed professional realtors in Louisiana, commercial, residential, investments, whatever you choose to do. These people, whether you're buying, whether you're selling, whether you want to invest, these people are the best in the business. They really are. Tigerland Properties, mainly they work in the Boot area of Louisiana, down in South Louisiana, but truly you could not be in better hands if you're buying or selling commercial, residential, or investing than Tigerland Properties. I encourage you to call them 225-320-3004. You want to make sure you're in good hands with commercial, residential, real estate, or investment. And they are the best.
Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to For the Love of Freedom. Today is Wednesday, May 13th. It's 10 a.m. Central, and I'm coming to you live on Voice of the People USA TV and radio network on Rumble, YouTube, X, and Facebook. Wherever you're watching or listening, please give us a thumbs up, share it, leave us some comments, get in the chat. We want to hear from you, and also it really helps us in the algorithms, helps us expand our reach. You can also always catch us later on our audio-only podcast platforms, usually the same day. And I am your host, Danielle Walker. And on this show, we meet people who have rejected the status quo, people who have broken with convention and broken with the belief that the TV or the textbooks tell them the truth. And each of my guests in their own way are working to bring freedom to the world. My guest today is a dear friend, Mary. Let me bring her forward. Hey, Mary.
How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for coming, Mary. I can't believe it's taken me so long to have you on the show. This is such a treat for me. This is such an absolute treat. But let me give you a proper introduction. Mary is a podcaster, a journalist, a researcher, and she's affiliated with America Rising Media. She has been deep diving for truth, and what she's found exposes the roots of a lot of the corruption and evil we are witnessing, experiencing, and fighting today. So she's got a no, we're fighting. She's got a near daily news show called Truth Blitz, which is wonderful during the lunch hour. And she has a weekend show, and you can correct any of this that I'm botching, Mary, called What We Should Have Learned. She's a frequent guest and commentator on podcasts, and I am so thrilled that you had time in your schedule to be with me today. You can also find her on social media, Rumble, and across her shows as Free for All to Learn. And you can see that there. It's the number 4, Free for All to Learn. But welcome to the show, Mary. How's it going? I caught you on your day off, so thank you for giving me some time.
My one day of the week. And she's like, which day is your day off? I'm like, Wednesday.
I'm like, great. You want to get dressed and come on?
I know, and I'm like, yeah, I'd love to. I did. I was really excited about it. I always enjoy spending time with you.
Oh, likewise. Well, let me frame out the show with a scripture, which I love to do. And it requires my big Bible today because it's in the Old Testament. So
nice.
Let's see. It's I thought this was such an appropriate scripture for today. And it is Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verses 9 through 11. And it says, that which has been is that which will be. And that which has been done is that which will be done. So there is nothing new under the sun. Is there anything of which one might say, see this, it is new. Already it has existed for ages which were before us. There is no remembrance of earlier things, and also of the later things which will occur. There will be for them no remembrance among those who will come later still. And as I was preparing for this show, that scripture came to mind because we are in this predicament globally and, specifically in America because of exactly what the scripture lays out. History repeats itself. Old evils continue because they were never fully dealt with. We fall into traps because true history was hidden from us. We were lied to about it, or they made it seem boring and irrelevant. And I wanted to bring that scripture because you have made it your business to dig out the truth of why we are where we are, and what's been hidden, and what real evils are persisting today. And I know you've been working on the roots of the modern Marxist movement, the history of the CIA, JFK assassination. Does this scripture feel confirming to your work?
It really does. You picked a good one. You really did, dear. You picked a very good one.
I just thought, I mean, it's almost makes you just crack up laughing. That's like probably a theme for your whole entire body of work.
Ironic is how I would describe quite a bit of my work.
Yeah.
A little over a year or so ago, I stumbled onto it was like a 45-minute video done by Chase Hughes, and he was
Okay.
talking about hypnosis and MK Ultra into RFK's assassination, and I thought it was just wonderful. So I played that and dug in on some other research with that, presented on one of my Sunday shows, the What We Should Have Learned. And the audience absolutely loved it. And they're like, we need to know more about MK Ultra and what can you find? And I was like, all right, well, if we're going to do the CIA, then I'm going to go back to the beginning.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do the CIA, and it'll take as long as it takes. I had no idea it would take years. I had no idea.
So intense.
Like and part of it's my fault because I'm extremely detail oriented. I would rather spend the time and dig out as much little nuances and threads as I can pull rather than just give like a 30-minute overview.
Yeah.
If it takes me 3 episodes to do it proper, fine.
Well, I think that's what's beautiful about the work, because the devil is in the details, as they say.
It is. It really is. When you're getting into, and the more I learn about the CIA, you know, they're an extension of the global cabal. They are the hand of the cabal. They were never working for the people. They have worked against the American people constantly, decade after decade after decade.
And that was a question that I wanted to ask you. I mean, in your view, was it even created with a benevolent aim, or was this like kind of a Patriot Act kind of precursor where they say national security, we need this, and they get the green light, they get the funding, they get the manpower, and then off they go to do all this evil stuff?
So it was started by a handful of guys, and one of them was a war hero. And I feel like he probably in the beginning was closer to what you were describing. That would be Donovan. Now, you can argue in the last 10 years of his career or so, he was fully on board with all the shenanigans. Wow. But in the beginning, you can easily make that argument. Then enters the Dulles brothers. And the Dulles brothers were already working for the corporatists and the globalists in Europe. They were the lawyers. They were also deeply entrenched in secret societies, Skull and Bones, all the stuff going back. So then they bring in a lot of their cronies into World War II, and they're playing both sides of the fence. They already had a working relationship with all the German companies that were doing the work of the Nazis. You know, all the chemical companies that were making, you know, like the gases and all the horrible stuff that leads to, I mean, you can follow this back to Monsanto's. I mean, this goes down the path to Roundup. Like, that's how far and how deep. They organized Operation Paperclip. You can make the argument with FDR. He was actually a pinko, which is the term for a light communist, which, yes, he was. When you go back and you really look at objectively at the deal that he was doing and how many courts struck it down, which is why we now have a larger Supreme Court. He got mad at them, so he packed it.
Wow.
He's the reason we have 2 term limits, because they were afraid he was going to make himself king. You can go all the way back with that. He also had a very tight relationship with Stalin, and he referred to him as Uncle Joe. So, wow. Right. So Stalin originally was working with us and the Allied forces against Germany, and then in come the Dulles brothers, and they flip it, and they work with the Nazi spy master to create stay-behind units. And they take all of that information, and that's where you get the rat lines. That's where you get them moving around Argentina. They go underground. That's where you get Operation Paperclip. That's where you got the opium trades that continued for decades. They were tight over in China and doing all of that. Like the shenanigans that sprouts between the end of World War II and 1960. It is unbelievable. I probably spent 6 months just on that section of history because there was so much.
Now, tell us what Operation Paperclip is about.
Okay, so originally in school, I was taught Operation Paperclip. That's where they chose certain Nazi scientists that were really sorry and didn't have a choice because they were going to get killed and their
Right.
families, we were told all this. Okay. We were also told it was only like 200 scientists. Yeah, it's closer to 2,000. And they were some of the worst, most like SS, yes, kill them all. Let's use the children. Slave camps, the whole thing. And ironically, one of the worst ones is the one that went to work for Disney. He did. I literally showed things of him, Disney commercials with him. So they brought all of that horror over into our country, and it went into every aspect. It went into energy, went into research, it went into pharma, it just spread its tentacles out.
And Mary, I read Joseph McCarthy's book, and let me see, I have it right here. America's Retreat from Victory. America's Retreat from Victory.
I would agree with that.
It's a horrifying read when you're waking up, right? Because you're like, are you kidding me? First of all, of course, we were taught that Joseph McCarthy was a psycho, paranoid freak, and whatever their version of today's racist is, was back then.
Probably towards the end of his life, he was getting really paranoid and he was drinking, but they were driving him crazy and doing all kinds of shit to him.
I mean, you can understand why people who
they get driven to a point, and that's part of the tactic.
So what I learned in reading his book was, I mean, the Dulles brothers were horrifyingly dark figures.
Yes.
And they imported, as you were talking about this Project Paperclip, they imported all of these communists into the country, and they used the State Department to do it.
Yes, they did. They absolutely did.
He also talked about in the book that they were using, like they would purposefully put homosexuals into the State Department because that was so taboo that they were able to blackmail them into doing all of this illicit and illegal, really treasonous paperwork.
Yes. And there were brothels in DC also. I uncovered that. That was part of LBJ and even all the way up to Watergate. There were active, high level elite brothels. Both genders, mostly women, but yeah, you look at Hoover, he was homosexual and had all kinds of very taboo fetishes for the day. Nowadays, it's an average day at Walmart, depending on what state you're in.
No kidding.
But back then, it was a really big deal. And it made them very controllable. And because I think Hoover knew how dark his secret was, he used that same skill on everyone around him. He was the file master. He had shit on everyone in Washington.
Wow.
Everyone.
Wow. So I want to jump to JFK, but I want to come back to this Washington issue because I think it all ties together. How does the CIA, I mean, of course, plenty of us believe that in some ways the CIA was responsible for the assassination of JFK.
I believe that.
And, I think you've been very clear about the fact that the CIA is not an arm of the U.S. government operating in the best interests of U.S. national security. They were another operation of brawn for the European globalists. And what I was wondering was, okay, you think about what all was going on at the time that JFK was assassinated. The Bay of Pigs, the Cuban Missile Crisis, his crackdown on the mafia, who may have been the very people who put him there. So that was a big deal. His stance on Vietnam and his interest in a potential troop drawdown there. Of course, he exposed the secret societies and he threatened to dismantle the CIA and probably a lot more than that. So when you just scratch the surface of what was going on at that time, it seems like JFK was a real pain in the butt to the deep state of the time. And they had probably never even experienced a pain in the butt of this kind, especially when they thought that they had created him. They thought that he was probably just going to do their bidding. So
That's
how does he
exactly it.
fit into all of this?
I think he there's no way he didn't understand the system. For example, the Fabian Society, this separate path, this is another section of research I've been doing. The Fabian Society started in 1884, and it's a group of British elites and what we would call, it's kind of like the original NGO, okay?
Okay.
Original think tank is what we would liken it to now. So you have a bunch of professors and rich people and educators. So they all have all of these shitty ideas. Pardon my,
You're fine.
I'll try.
You're fine.
All of these awful ideas that they have stem from this group. So they created the Labour Party in London, and then they created the London School of Economics as a grooming utensil. So, for example, JFK he went to the London School of Economics. So there's no way he didn't know. When I'm saying all these ideas, like importing illegals, mass abortions, the control state, eliminating the middle class, all of your green initiative crap. Like when you trace back all of the platforms that you see on the left, no matter what Western country you're looking at, it comes from the Fabian Society.
So when you say there's no way he didn't know, you mean like, for instance, okay, I went to UVA for business school. They sent us to two countries, or they sent me to two countries to study business practices. Communist China and communist Cuba. Yeah. So what I guess my takeaway from that is you can go to this place of indoctrination and you can see it for what it is.
Yes.
But he thought for himself in that place, and they never, do you have any insight into why he was this kind of shining light in such a place of darkness?
I don't know, because he was a very checkered person personally. He was not faithful. He had a lot of, he had an injury that he dealt with. He was on medication for that. There's a lot of things personally with him, but I feel like his brother RFK was probably the best out of the entire family. And I feel like that was probably his guiding light, because he kept his brother so close to him, and that's the only one that he trusted to carry out orders. And that's what drove Hoover nuts. Hoover absolutely hated RFK more than any of them. He was probably very happy when the little, quote, shits got what was coming to them.
Yeah.
And LBJ's in the center of it. He's the linchpin to, no matter which conspiracy angle you're looking at, whether it's the mob, the CIA, or those are the main two. The mob and the CIA are the main ones. But no matter what angle you're looking at, LBJ is the connecting bolt between all of them. Whether you're looking at policy arrangements or any of that, he had the most to gain, and he was a full-on puppet. He didn't care.
LBJ. Yeah.
He did not care. And he hated them. He worked to get on the ticket and then worked to undermine them. He was a rampant racist and misogynist. The more secretaries or whatever that JFK would have in and out, if you get where I'm going with the twist, LBJ took it upon himself to be a competitor, and saying that he had the biggest. I mean, he was so gross. He would talk about how big his genitals were.
Oh, come on.
When I really dug into him, he had a personal assassin before he got elected. He had squads. He had the stuff that I uncovered about him. I was just like, I can't believe that we're taught in school that he's a good person.
Well, all of our presidents were good and had the best interest of our country at heart, Mary.
Except Trump. He's the only one that they'll tell us there's never anything good about him.
Right. And the only reason the actual good ones can be considered good is because they either killed them or made them less effective through some serious strong arming tactics. Do you think JFK, it makes me feel like that perhaps he had seen some great injustice or experienced some grave injustice in his life that would make him such a strong, have such a what seems like a pretty North Star in terms of running for the right reasons, wanting to do what's right, even while being in the midst of this swamp filled with, literal people who want to kill you.
Yeah. I assume it's his time spent in war, in World War II. He almost died. He ended up saving some of his crew. That's how he got the back injury. But working alongside with just regular folk, perhaps, in such a situation where you bond, I assume that's where a lot of that came from.
Okay.
I don't think that he and his brother understood the mafia connection until they were in office. Then his brother was starting to go after the mafia, and then the blowback they were getting was, hey, we got you here. Don't bite the hand. And until they really confronted their father, it doesn't look like they understood. Like, I think they knew it was around, because how can you not? The mafia ran Hollywood, and his father, that was one of his claims to fame back in the 20s and 30s. He ran the agency in Hollywood, so all the casting agencies. He had affairs with starlets. It's not like they didn't know the connections. But I don't think they knew about like the Chicago rigging and all of that, because it really does look like he may not have won Illinois, and that would have cost him the election.
Wow.
It's said that Nixon was presented evidence at the time that he actually won, but he chose not to pursue it because he thought it would be too hard on the people. For all of Nixon's flaws, he did a lot of good things.
I agree. And, he's one of those who has been so demonized because he did not fold the way they wanted him to fold. They would have vastly preferred him to be a puppet than to say no and be forced out of office.
I'm going to be heading into the Watergate. That's the next section of my digs. I'm finishing out the 60s and 70s domestic terrorism cells. As usual, when I start doing this, I thought, it'll be 2 or 3 episodes. Yeah, no, it's going to be like 6 or 7, because there's so much. I had no idea how many there were. I had no idea that in like 1972 alone, there was over 2,000 bombings in the United States.
Oh my gosh.
Like,
I had no idea either.
There was thousands every year in the 70s, all across America. There were police shootings. They were hunting police. In the middle of this, you have all the serial killers, which now I'm starting to side-eye those. And I'm like, were they legitimate? Was there something else going on?
Wow.
Because the timing is really screwy.
Say more about that.
Well, I haven't dug into the serial killers yet. I've kind of been putting that on the side. I did the Manson, and Manson was a CIA op. Manson was. He had handlers in the FBI and CIA working around him, and Sharon Tate.
Was he like an MK Ultra victim and or
and perpetrator,
participant, however you want to frame it?
It looks like when he spent his time in prison, he went in a different person. He came out Charles Manson that we know.
Wow.
And they were doing MK Ultra experiments in the prison that he was in. Wow. And then after that, no matter what he did, he got away with it. He was arrested. All of his followers were arrested over and over and over. And that's where the FBI handlers come in, because he had one person that was his parole officer. And that person only dealt with him. And that person worked with the FBI.
Wow. So would you tie all of this, like, do you think that if you had a long enough thread, you could tie all of this back to the Dulles brothers and how they brought these evil people into the country?
Yes.
Because they populated all of these fields, right? They got their visas or they got their citizenship, and then they got tenured professorships and they got doctorates.
They were doing mind experiments on the prisoners. So when you're looking at MK Ultra, can I directly put them in a meeting together? No, but I can prove that they were doing mind experiments during the war on prisoners. And then they all came here. And then suddenly World War II officers like Jolly West, who was a decorated officer and a scientist, then he started MK Ultra under Gottlieb. Gottlieb worked with the Operation Paperclip people. And then you have 149 subcategories under the heading of MK Ultra. So 149 other projects that fall under that. And it was in multiple locations in other countries also.
In your view, was Nuremberg just what the people that were convicted, just a drop in the bucket of what was there, and they,
Yeah, it was a show trial.
yeah,
It was
yeah.
fake. The Supreme Court, the Dulles brothers were at there pulling people out and making them disappear out of there. People that were supposed to be on trial, they were pulling them out for Operation Paperclip. And there's arguments with one of the Supreme Court justices that was there at Nuremberg. There are documented arguments with them.
Now, coming back to DC, the Dulles brothers, JFK, what I was thinking about this morning as I was kind of trying to get my thoughts together, Trump has, he campaigned on this idea of, the swamp is too concentrated. We have to drain the swamp. I think my theory is that the reason the Dulles brothers were able to do so much is because they had such a concentration of power in DC. And I lived in DC for a long time. I understand that there are power families in that area.
Yes.
There are people, it's like anything. It's a small town. You build a network, and that can be used for good or for evil. And so I was just thinking, since Trump's come into office, we have not heard very much at all about devolving the agency locations across the country. We have seen some of that happen, but it hasn't been like a big headline. Yeah, we saw it with the FBI. I think we've seen it a little bit as well with what was the other agency? Maybe NASA is doing some work outside of DC as well.
I think they were moving some of the locations to Alabama and a couple different states where, they're already fortified with their tech research, and there's a lot of data centers going into those same locations, and you can make arguments both ways on the data centers. I think we're going to be arguing about data centers for several more years.
Yeah.
And they're going up so fast. I have a feeling the communities are going to be fighting some of the ramifications of it. Mostly, I worry about the radiation. As much as we complained about the 5G towers, I'm more worried about that. People are obviously very worried about the water supply and the noise and stuff. I'm worried about the radiation.
Yeah.
That's just me personally.
I think, Mary, I can tell you here in Louisiana, there is, I think, one of the biggest data centers in the country by Meta is coming up. It's the size of Manhattan. They're building. I don't know if you've seen, but it's in this small, yeah, exactly. Why are they putting it in a hot state? I have no idea. I'm like, if you want to use water, go down to the Gulf.
Why aren't you putting it in Montana or one of the Dakotas, or you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of places north.
Well, I can tell you part of the reason why. It's because our governor and legislature set up this really treacherous system where the companies sign NDAs with the localities. And so the local political leaders suddenly find themselves hand-tied and can't even talk to their constituents about the projects that the constituents are paying for, right? Because they have massive tax breaks. It's a huge sweetheart deal where we're going to end up with all this construction labor, and then you get nothing, right? You get like 3 people working that thing, maybe 5.
Yeah,
I don't know.
There's one not far from me that they're putting in. It's a Meta one. It's not that big, but they promised a bunch of jobs, and then when it shakes out, it's under 20.
Yeah, and we're hearing stuff that people in those areas are getting sick already.
I'm sure they are.
It's horrific.
I'm sure they are.
I don't know. There's a lot of arguments that I think are very reasoned about this being the setup for more surveillance.
Yeah. Anthropic is the one to keep your eye on for the surveillance. That is the tool the globalists chose out of the AI ones. I'm not nearly as concerned with the other ones. Follow Anthropic. My friend Feisty did a huge dig on that, and it was amazing. And she proved it.
I saw, Mary, I saw one of her recent shows where she talked about the fact that Anthropic, and you probably have the details on this better than me, Anthropic got got into a fight with Pete Hegseth about parameters
Yes.
for their tech
Yes.
in the DOW.
Mhm.
Hegseth put down his foot, drew a line in the sand, and they said, "Oh yeah," and they sent the wrong coordinates,
Mhm.
knowingly sent outdated coordinates to the field commanders, and that's how those that girls' school got blown up.
Yep.
It was what, a day after?
Less than 24 hours after he told them no. They
That is
sent
sick.
that
These are
coded
some
in.
sick,
Yeah.
evil people.
They killed 165 little girls to make a statement. And keep your eye on Anthropic. So America Rising Media, we do feisty digs, and some of it's on Sean's channel. I'm sorry, it's confusing on that. Some of them are on Sean's channel. Most of them are on America Rising. But she does amazing digs. She did an outstanding one on the NGO network connected to the DEI. So the Southern Poverty Law Center, right around that time, she'd already been working on a dig with it, and then she just made it just so well-rounded and went deep into it. She came up with organizations and people that I wasn't even aware of. And I mean, I'm digging all the time on this stuff. And she had new ones. And I'm always thrilled when there's new information. I love it. I love working with people that are always bringing new information to the table.
Yeah, she does a great job, and I would highly recommend her shows too. Thank you for turning me on to her.
Oh, she's sweet. You should have her on sometime. She's a lovely person.
I should have her on. I really love the work that she's been doing, and I love, her work, your work brings the receipts. It's not, this isn't conspiracy theory. It's not coincidence theory, as I heard it called the other day. And I really like that. I think it's more accurate.
That's a good one.
But it's real history with the real, usually primary sources, and insofar as you can get them.
Yes, we do try. We really do try.
Now, your work on the Fabian Society, this stuff, okay, people think that Marxism began with Karl Marx. Would you just disabuse us of that notion?
So, yeah, it really, you could argue the first communist overthrow of a country was the French Revolution. If you look at what was going on, and the reason I always go back to that is if you really dig into the current Democratic Socialist Party of America, they refer to themselves as Jacobins. They use the same language. They use the same symbols as the French Revolution. And then they also imbue all of the communist rhetoric. And they're infiltrating through the labor parties. And they've been doing that really since the 40s. That was part of what McCarthy was going after. The communist movement was embedded deep. We had a huge communist movement in our country in the 1920s. Anybody I would recommend going back and looking at Anthony C. Sutton, his work. I've been diving into a lot of that with that side project. Most of his work, he passed in 2002. He was a brilliant economics and scientist with the Hoover Institute most of his career, and then he started publishing books outing a conspiracy between Wall Street and the Bolshevik Revolution, Wall Street and FDR, and then he did Wall Street backing Hitler, and he brought the receipts. He used all of the documents from the State Department that were at the Hoover Institute, and he published these books on it, and they got really mad at him.
And is that where Victor Davis Hanson is now, the Hoover Institute? So that's his predecessor. That's pretty awesome. I mean, it's amazing. You said how horrible a person Hoover was, but apparently his institute has gotten some good people.
It's ironic. It's ironic, but it is a think tank. But he did work on secret societies. He did work on the Fabian Institute. He also did additional, what was it? The Best Enemy Money Can Buy. That was another good one. He proved that our companies, and you can refer to it as Wall Street or globalists, whichever label you want, but our American companies like Ford had created all of the trucks, all of the factories in like Vietnam. So we were fighting our own mechanics. They had funded both sides of the war yet again, as they did in World War I, World War II. They did it in Vietnam. They did it in Korea. That's how they kept. So when you refer to the military-industrial complex, it's it kind of overlaps with the globalist and the Wall Street. However you want to label it. I'm not attached to certain labels. Some people are.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to look
City
at.
of London, the
We're
High
talking about the
Table.
same
Yeah.
beast. Yes. We're
The
all
elite
talking about
ruling
the same beast.
families, the 13 families, whatever. Those are all, it's all
the same.
synonyms, right?
Yes. Yes. Another person that we work with, Duppy is his handle, and he does genealogical research, and he's tracked the 13 families. He just did a wonderful decode on S. Jones's channel. I know you're going to be on her channel soon. He did 7 episodes, and he went all the way back through Egyptian times, and it was brilliant, some of his work. He's been doing it now for 5 years, just sitting around doing all the genealogy of these. So if anybody is interested in that, look up Duppy. He does great work.
Yeah, I've been meaning to watch those episodes, especially on the ruling families, because
there's some interesting stuff in there. And it goes into, if you want to understand the birth of the City of London, I think I sent that one to you, because they actually, through the East India Trading Company in the mid 1600s, they changed over. And that is when the City of London was created. It's actually kind of a branch of the East India Trading Company, if you want to think of it like that, how they colonized out. He went through all of that, went through the treaties, who was the players, how that affected what they became, the Lords of London, how that all, like, he spent 3 hours just on that. It was brilliant.
Wow. Yeah. And a lot of those players, the progeny of those players are people we see in front of the cameras today.
Yes. Yes. A lot of the families, whether you're looking at a Tom Hanks, he did an entire decode on John Cusack. He's tied to a Royal Scottish family. Like, a lot of the actors in Hollywood go back. Jamie Lee Curtis's husband is part of that, you know, no matter what you want to look at. Wow. He's done all the work on those. Pretty interesting. If you're into that.
Yeah,
a good
one. No, that's super interesting. So who are some of the, okay, wait, let's maybe before I get there, back to the Fabian Society.
Yes.
So what was the genesis of that organization that has kind of bred out all of these, institutions today?
Well,
whether
the easiest modern institution I can compare it to is the World Economic Forum. So basically, a bunch of these people they pulled their literature from another one, again tied to the East India Trading Company and the City of London, called Leviathan. It's a book. If anybody wants to look that up, it'll horrify the crap out of you. But that kind of is the genesis for the Fabian Society. 200 years later, you get them. I'll give you an example. Orson Welles was one of the ones that got sucked in. He wasn't a founder of it. There were 13 founders, like the 13 families. He came under I think he went to school, and one of them was his professor, and he joined for like 5 or 6 years. 1984 is literally what they had envisioned. And their entire doctrine was to go as slow as possible. It was named Fabian Society is after a Roman general. And his strategy was to not engage the enemy and grind them to a halt. He would just encroach so slowly that you wouldn't know what was happening. Their coat of arms is literally a wolf wearing a sheepskin.
So Orson Welles, bad guy?
No, he left them.
Okay, I didn't know if defection was allowed.
It cost him. It cost him. But yes, most of his work after that, I'm not saying he was ever a capitalist. I think he probably stayed more on the socialist line, but he did not like what they had planned. And their plan was to have it 100 years, like a slow increment. So that's why they were formed in 1884. That's why he wrote 1984.
Okay.
That's why. A lot of people will tell you that's a conspiracy theory, but I can't, like, that one's so obvious why he did that. I don't know how anybody can be like, that's not real. I'm like, really? And you look at what all he said, and then he did it I don't know how you can't line that up, but okay.
So that was a shot across the bow to them.
Big time. Big time.
And it was a warning, but I don't know how seriously the warning has been heeded.
Yeah. H.G. Wells was one of their elite members who stayed in. This is where you get the eugenics movement. So all of Planned Parenthood and all of that down the way. Margaret Sanger was a big believer in the Fabian Society. She was one of them that was pulling it. And a lot of the elites, Because again, you're having elites in London, so then you have all the elite educators and all of the journalists and the wealthy people in America are like, oh, this is wonderful. We should, because what it does is it recreates a feudalist society and eliminates a lot of useless eaters. It culls the herd in one way or another, and then it forces them into, and it specifically states in their doctrine, they want a one world government. They do not want sovereignty. They do not want countries. They think a lot of certain countries and cultures are useless eaters, basically. It's
Extremely
horrifying.
racist. Extremely racist.
Oh, unbelievable. They wanted to get rid of, all religion, especially Christians. They really hated Christians, but they wanted to kill Jews. They wanted to, get rid of, I don't think they liked blacks. There was, I forget all the ones, but they had a list, of the ones, and eugenics was one of the ways that they were going to get rid of anyone that had like, let's say you were born without an arm, or you were born with Down syndrome. So Hitler embraced all of these ideologies. I also found research that at one point, Winston Churchill was the vice president of the Eugenics Society.
Wow.
Which shocked and horrified me. According to Duppy in his research, Churchill and FDR were cousins. So I'm just like, the more I look at all of the different pieces of the puzzle and I pull them together and look at, you zoom out and you look at the whole picture and you're like, there's no way this isn't a plan.
Yeah.
There's no way.
And
how can it be?
And there's plenty of research that's at least come to light in the last 2 years about Churchill not being a good guy, but instead being the proponent of war on war on war.
Yes. He profited greatly from it. And the war that he was involved in, okay, so are you familiar with Operation Gladio?
Only, I would say in name only.
Okay. So the idea came from Churchill, and also the Nazis had, I don't know if they created the idea or if they both just had the same idea. During the Boer Wars, which Churchill was a part of pre-World War I, that was when they were going into Africa and they were colonizing, and there was war and all the stuff. So the indigenous people in there, black and white, they created stay-behind units. So they would gather up all the supplies, ammo, radios, and they would bury and hide them. They would wait for the army to pass, then they would circle around behind them, gather all the stuff that they need, and then they would box them in and kill them. And they were called stay-behind units. So ironically, that is exactly what the Nazis were doing across Europe every time that they did this. And the general that was in charge of it was General Wolfe. And he wanted all of his people that were a part of this, he called them Wolverines. And he said by day they were regular citizens, then by night they hunted and killed communists. That was the doctrine of them. So when they joined with Dulles said, okay, I will grant you immunity. We will move your people around, but you have to give me every name and every location of all of your stay-behind units, and I'm going to take control of them. And they did. So at that point, the pre-CIA, so really Dulles and the globalists, took control of all of that. Then the deal was brokered for Operation Paperclip and all of that. But then you have all of these units in every country that they had touched. So then you start having all of this violence popping off in the 50s and 60s. So you have, what was the guy in France? De Gaulle. They tried to kill him like 20 some times, and it was the stay-behind units.
And by stay-behind units, you mean people essentially fomenting or color revolution?
Think of it as Antifa. If you want to compare, I view Antifa as a stay-behind unit in a lot of those sense. They pop up. They do all kinds of insurgent moves. They can kill. They frequently were taught to dress up as the enemy. So they would create a false flag situation. They would put on whatever the garb of whoever they were trying to get it blamed on. They would go and do an act of terrorism, kill a bunch of innocent people, and then the opposition would get blamed for it. Everybody would make money, and they would hunt them, you see.
So were they were not Europeans themselves. They were the product of a training.
Some of them.
Of a training program or cross-country collaboration kind of facade.
Now you can view this as the doctrine that followed in the CIA, no matter what country you're looking at where we overthrew it. Okay. So whether you're looking at Iran and the Shah, whether you're
Mhm.
looking at Nicaragua, you're looking at Iran-Contra, you're looking at the death squads in Operation Phoenix. All of these things are units where the special forces, CIA people would go in, find the people that live there, train them to be insurgents, to be
Yeah.
hostile, and then they would create whatever the opposition was. So it's a lot of leftists will frame it in, well, they were trying to overthrow communism, and that's why communism could never work. That's the frame that they'll give it. That's the excuse of why communism never worked. It's the CIA's fault. I don't really accept that lens because they did it no matter who the opposition was, no matter what it was, whether it was a capitalist.
As long as they weren't controlling, if they couldn't control
They didn't
them,
play ball.
Okay.
If they would not, and again, it goes back to the globalist assets. So if you're looking at diamond mines, or now it would be, the rare earth minerals.
Yeah.
So if a leader does not sign on and go with whatever the companies or the country, and it can be European countries too.
Mm-hmm.
It's not always just us.
Yeah. Well, look at Hungary.
Then usually MI6 and CIA and a few others would work together and create units. They would do terrorism acts and make it look like it was that leader.
Yeah. So this is the playbook.
Exactly.
What's that guy's name? The Saul Alinsky almost.
Yes.
It's
yes.
his playbook, right?
Very much.
This is the origination point of the color revolution.
Yes. Do you know, you remember Obama? Because back when he was running, people were like, you're a protege of Solinsky. And he was like, I absolutely am not. And he denied the hell out of it. He's selling that book in his library now.
That's crazy.
For the small fee.
What trash. What absolute trash.
I did an episode on Saul too.
You did? Have you looked at, and that's Rules for Radicals, right? His book? Yeah.
Yes.
Have you watched the latest episode of the Promethean Action Lady, Susan Kokenda, talking
this
about,
morning.
Okay, well, you're ahead of me. I didn't watch that one, but the one where she talks about Patrick Gaspard and his connection. So I knew him because he was ambassador to South Africa when I was working in DC, and so I just find it really fascinating. And I felt like whenever she was talking about him, I was like, Susan, you're leaving out the fact that he was ambassador to South Africa. Look what's happened in South Africa since he's left. Now, I know that Julius Malema, the leader of the EFF down there, is a really racist, very militant group, political party.
Yes.
He has been gaining strength over the last 15, 20 years in politics. Now, if there were somebody, there could have been a force, I believe, that softened that didn't allow that to happen. But I think that has been cultivated for a reason, for further division. And we're seeing the fruit of that play out. And I just find it very interesting that he's not the last ambassador that was there, but he was certainly there at a critical moment. And I have an interest in going back and seeing what he thought his biggest accomplishments were while he was there, because I think they will be enlightening.
Yeah, you should reach out to them and tell them. I love the Promethean ladies, but often there are pieces, and I don't know if they're aware of it and they're just creating a 12-minute content.
Yeah.
Because that's what people can digest, and you can't always go too deep. So I don't know if they don't know those or if they just chose to condense it.
Yeah. I kind of think it's the latter, but I think that South Africa has a very big part to play in this because of how controlled they have been.
I know. Feisty uncovers, because her thing that she's so good at is the banking industry and the shadow banking.
Yeah.
She's done so much work on that in crypto. She can tell you anything about the new bill that they're going to be looking at today, like all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
That's why I've been so excited to work with her. I don't know as much about that.
Yeah.
I know just like the 40,000 foot view. I don't know the details of it.
And she likes getting into that stuff. I like it when I don't want to do that research myself. That's what, you know what I mean?
But I'm so happy she does, and I can sit there and ask questions.
Exactly. Exactly.
Literally it. I'm like, can I be on that show and ask questions?
100%.
Oh, but yeah, that's that's the piece of the Promethean. There's some things with the shadow banking that would make their work a little more fuller. And again, I love their work. I'm not
Yeah.
criticizing. I'm thrilled they're picking up traction because that's more people that are seeing, and that'll help them understand like the deeper research that you do or that I do. Once they get red pilled on looking at the big frame instead of just, you know, America bad or Trump bad or, you know, whatever. There's so many more working parts at play, and that's why the history is so important, which is why I've spent over a year, and I'm only up to the 70s. Girl, it took me a year. I've done like 40 years, and that's it in 1 year.
I want to ask you about the 70s because we're seeing it's come out, and I think this has been long known, but has not been known enough or cared about enough. Karen Bass being a member of
Weather Underground.
The Weather Underground, and who else was in the Weather Underground? That was
Dorns and Ayers, Billy Ayers. Those are two of the main ones. There's a lot of other key players and a lot of rich communists from New York, and their children were in it. That's Dorn, and there's another one. It's Christine. Her name escapes me, but she's a legacy communist also. Yeah. But their children that they raise are now DAs, like the one Che. Ironically, because they're such big communists, they would name the kid Che after Che,
Guevara,
the revolutionary crazy one in Cuba. But they did go to and from Cuba. There's a bunch of different ones. There was offshoots of the Black Panther movement, which was really a very communist movement. I know there were Christian men in it that probably didn't maybe see what was going on. Like if you were a regular member, you probably weren't in on the high level stuff, but it was a full-on communist movement. Okay. As in Eldridge Cleaver, who was a communist, that he was a convict and a communist, and in his manifesto he bragged about raping women, and he's a monster. So he gets out of jail. He's a Black Panther. He's going to expand the movement. He ends up going over to Africa and being an ambassador over there. Then he suddenly has meetings. Now, he got kicked out of Cuba because Fidel Castro was like, you're CIA, get the hell out. So he has meetings with the leader of North Korea. He has meetings with Mao. He has meetings with all these world leaders. And he's just some rando convict. He's not a legacy person. He's like, the more I uncover on this stuff, I'm like, there's no way he wasn't. Like, how can you tell me it's not infiltrated?
He got, so you think he was propagandized in prison, or do you think, Yeah,
there was a bunch of them all the way back to Malcolm X. I did an entire episode on the religion, the Nation of Islam. I fell down a rabbit hole one night on that one because I was trying to understand, because it was in the prison as I was looking into the Black Panthers and Malcolm X and Eldridge Clinton, all this stuff. It kept coming up over and over because that's where they learned the Nation of Islam and were converted, was in the prison system, specifically usually in California and Maryland were the other ones that kept coming up. And I was like, why are they like pushing this in the prison system? Why is this So I started looking at it, and the Nation of Islam, when you look at their current holdings, it mirrors Scientology. Like when you look at their, like the properties they own, how they do things, and it really had a very Scientology vibe to me. So then I was looking into the origins. Well, it's based on this other religion called the Science of Moorism, which was created by this odd little con man who pretended to be everything from Black to Jewish to white to like, and when you look at the pictures of him, he's very clearly a white dude. And he's like, I'm Black. And then he like all the African garb. He like made all the little African garb. And then he decided he read like the Quran. And then he wrote an addendum to the Quran and said, I am the prophet. I am Allah. And which is blasphemy. Yeah. But he wrote like all these other 9 chapters. And then he renamed it the Koran with a K. And I'd always heard it said in 2 different versions. I just assumed it was like potato.
Yeah.
You know, like Koran.
But the Q one is the one that starts with a Q is the official one?
Yes. And the one with the K goes back to this guy. And he said that God created only black people, and then there's this evil wizard, and he created white people, and that's when the world went to shit. That's the Cliff's Notes of this.
Very
And
good. Sounds like he was on drugs.
He probably was. He he got arrested. He was involved with polygamy. There's always a murder involved in all of this stuff. There's murders. Every time I look into these religions, there's always the leaders involved in murders. And he was, and then he managed to get out of that. And then he got in a car and disappeared and was never heard from again. And he was only 35. He just disappeared.
Weird.
Right. So then the Nation of Islam comes out of this a couple years later. And that guy's also involved in polygamy, murder, all kinds of other stuff. And that was the mentor to Malcolm X, who later, evidence kind of looks like he may have had him killed. Someone in the Nation of Islam is part of the assassination of Malcolm X.
Wow.
So I've just fallen down so many rabbit holes.
You have, and it's been such a gift to me. I really enjoy watching and tuning into your rabbit trails. And I think what we have, the thoughts or the teachings that we have consumed, we kind of, for people who are awake, I think we've kind of done this where it's like, you just kind of hold everything out there as I guess what I know is probably not true. And at some point, hopefully, you can't research everything. So hopefully somebody who has researched it, the truth will come along your path, and the truth resonates, right? It has a frequency. You know that it is the truth when you hear it. And so that's such a gift from God to us, because we can't possibly go down every rabbit hole. There's no time to study the entirety of world history, but it is super important to what we are facing in the world right now. The people that have perpetuated all of this evil trace back to at least the fall of Rome. We found
very much.
Perhaps farther.
Yeah, I would agree with that. You can take it back into the biblical, definitely into Egypt for sure. A lot of the symbolism and the things that we see come from Egyptian symbols. Can't deny that.
Yeah, and even what's in the layout, like the Masonic influences in DC, in the establishment of DC, and all of the Masonic stuff comes from ancient Egypt, or a lot of it does. I started looking into that recently, and that is some pretty dark stuff as well.
It is. There's two paths on that. There is it was hijacked and not everybody's bad, or there is it's all bad. That's the two pathways on that one. So I don't know which one is right.
I'm reading this book on it right now, and they said that the skills to build the ancient pyramids were kind of highly sought after, and so the people who were the Masons kind of became a secret society, so to speak, to pass on their trade within that group of people. And I think those trade skills ended up building the cathedrals in Europe. Yes. And so that was the origination. But of course there was, I don't know. I think I need to dig a little bit more into it. I need to do a little bit more reading on it, probably a lot more, but I don't know if I have the time for a lot more.
Ask Johnny can tell you quite a bit about that.
Yeah.
If you have questions, reach out to Johnny, and he can at least direct you to what to look for, because that's his wheelhouse. Secret societies is like his thing. He's been studying for 20 some years.
That's crazy.
So, and that would be Johnny Q with the America Rising Media.
Yeah, great guy.
That's his dig.
Okay.
So if you have questions, just reach out to Johnny. He can tell you, because that's what I do when I run into something and I'm like, I don't know where I'm looking on this, and he'll give me like 5 resources, and that'll help me. So
awesome.
Great guy.
Well, Mary, what insight, what encouragement, what advice would you give to the audience today as they're looking at the world that we're in? And, you go back and you think about the things that you've been studying. If they want to take a look at some of that stuff, or if they want to understand what we're witnessing, how would you advise them?
Stay fluid. Most of what we've been taught has been manipulated at the least, a direct lie in many ways. So you have to accept that a lot of the things that you think are probably not true and be okay with that. And be okay to change your mind and change your opinion. The only thing I would say to lock onto would be the Bible and God. Anything else, be okay with what you thought is not correct. And it could be stuff within the movement that we all have thought, because I have a feeling a lot of the people that we, and I think it's going to come out in the next few months, but I think a lot of the people that we thought were bad might have been double agents. So just don't get committed. Just be okay. Like everything's a psyop.
Yeah.
Not your fault. We're just trying to figure it out. So just, don't beat yourself up and don't lock in and don't alienate other people because they're locked into one thing. We're all learning and discovering it right now. It's really, it's become a cliche, but it really is an exciting time to be alive.
Yeah, it is. You all you have to do is basically turn on your phone and you can see that we're living in the midst of history. And I think, my encouragement to our audience always is find out what you're here for. Talk to God, find out what you're here for, and get locked into your purpose so that you can be bringing the things to the world that God destined for you, planned for you to bring to the world, because we need you. We can't do everything. We're not skilled and gifted in every way. And so it's so important for people to be putting their gifts and their skills into use so that we can all benefit and so that we can really break free from this globalist stranglehold that we are still in the midst of the fight of. The fight ain't near over yet.
No, we got a long way to go. We'll be untangling this for at least another decade, probably longer. The worst of it, I think, in the next 5 years, and then we'll be ironing out things like the data centers and like all of these things. It's going to get ironed out. It's going to take some time.
Yeah. Well, Mary, I want to be sure, and I put it in the chat already, but I just want to flag it for people on Rumble, and if you're watching Facebook.
Oh, I see S. Jones is over on Rumble. Shout out to my buddy Sabine.
Hey, S. Jones. Good to see you, honey. Thanks for tuning in. I just wanted to flag that all of your links are in the chat, and the link to America Rising Media is there as well. You can find the schedule there. So for anybody who wants to tune in, they're on Rumble, Pilt, and probably some other places too.
All right. Thank you guys so much. And thank you, Danielle. It's been so fun. We don't get such that time together.
I know we don't. And I owe you a call because I have some ideas for you.
Ooh, okay. That'd be great.
Awesome. Well, God bless you, Mary. Thank you for spending some time with me today. And I just want to make a quick announcement to the audience that tomorrow we will be back at 8 a.m. Bright and early, 8 a.m. Central. And Lisa Townsend from Intercessors for America will be joining us. She will be talking about the rededication of America to the Lord. This is going to be, she's got some great insight, and this weekend is going to be so special. And I think it's a very critical moment in our history. She's going to talk about the spiritual template for this and what it's going to mean for us going forward. So you'll be sure to want to tune into that. Of course, we'll also give an update on all of the drama around the redistricting, which continues to be quite volatile. So anyway, if you're thinking about it, please pray for Louisiana. Please pray for the legislature. There's some pretty tense moments going on there right now, but we're hoping and praying for the best outcome possible. And we look forward to seeing y'all all tomorrow. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Blanco Brothers has been in business in Louisiana for about 30 years now. I have personal experience with this company, and I know others who have as well. If you have a business or a home and you've got roofing, gutter, sheet metal issues at all, one number you need to know, and that's Blanco Brothers Construction. He will treat you right financially, and he will take very good care of you with regard to the quality of the service that he provides. I cannot recommend Blanco Brothers Construction more highly enough. Memorize the number 225-226-4222. Blanco Brothers Construction, the very best in the business. Fuego, it's just unbelievable. Whether it's the flame-grilled carne asada or a signature mango margarita. I had one of those too. They're serving up a literal feast of freedom at Calle Fuego. It's just extraordinary. I love the owners, Andres and Jose. They run such a great restaurant. The service is extraordinary. The atmosphere is great. So if you're in Pineville and the Alexandria area or passing through, or if you live there, go to Calle Fuego and tell them the State of Freedom sent you.
Thanks for joining me today on For the Love of Freedom. It is an honor and a true privilege to get to spend some time with you. If you're looking for other episodes of this show, you can find them on all of the State of Freedom platforms. And a reminder that this show is live on Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Central. God bless.